When you walk outside your front door, how many transportation options do you have? If you're North American, you likely have only one, your car. However, in more civilized cultures, where people's hopes and dreams haven't been completely crushed, there are at least 3, and sometimes even 4 or 5 options readily available to you. In decent countries, you could walk, bike, drive your car, take the bus, or board a train. And the infrastructure and service is door to door, meaning you step out your front door, and after walking a short period of time, maybe 5 minutes or less, you step onto a bus, or straddle a bike, or, and this is my personal favorite, board a train. And that infrastructure and service takes you all the way to your destination. And it doesn't matter much from which door you emerge, or your final destination. There are 5 safe, affordable, humane, and convenient transportation options available to you. And again, that's with minimal walking in between. Now, if you decide to walk, which is my second favorite way to travel, the infrastructure is specifically tailored to you. It offers you comfort and convenience and is designed with you in mind. It's not an afterthought, and it isn't set off on the side of some other infrastructure that serves a different purpose. The transportation experience I just described to you is the type of infrastructure and service that I found in every European city I visited. And for all North American urbanists, an experience like this is almost inconceivable. Literally, when I describe this type of infrastructure to people in North America, the look on their faces is similar to me describing Narnia or Middle Earth or Mad Max. They just don't get it, and they probably never will. I recently attended a Strong Towns meeting here in Denver and had the chance to bend the ear of a former transportation planner from the United States. When I described my vision to him of how Denver could improve its urban design, he got so confused and so disoriented that I had to tell him that perhaps we should start our conversation over. Here, let me explain to you what I mean. We were sitting in a bar, and I brought up one of Denver's main transportation corridors. I wanted to get his take on some of my harebrained ideas on how to improve this system. Essentially, I was looking for some guidance and a reality check. I started off lamenting on how in this corridor, the powers that be have decided to cram everything onto one street, namely Broadway. There, they have painted lines and bike lane delineators and street signs and blinking lights. It's just a chaotic mess, and I was concerned that it doesn't address our main issues, which are access, frequency, and conflict. I went on further to suggest that if we took the bikes and buses off of Broadway and designated adjacent streets as bus-only and bike-only streets, we could greatly improve the system. With specific infrastructure designed and designated for a specific use, we would minimize conflict and therefore make the system safer for the people that use it. We could spread the service out so that more people would have access, and we could increase the frequency of the service and introduce robust express and limited services to make the system more convenient for the community. And finally, that we could do all of this without having to deal with traffic congestion due to the fact that our buses, bikes, and walking infrastructure would be separated, and we could even give them right away. Now, in North America, we don't need to redo a bunch of new infrastructure. We already have lots of street redundancy. We could just convert adjacent streets to these services. Now, by North American standards, these ideas are clearly out-of-the-box thinking, and by doing this, I'm engaging in a fair amount of abstract thought. What was so baffling to me was just how difficult it was for him to comprehend this vision. He just looked at me with a slack-jawed, blank stare. Now, I know that not everyone is capable of abstract thought, but come on, this is a Strong Towns event. I was really taken aback by just how much pessimism and lack of enthusiasm and lack of vision these folks exhibited. After a while, he started regurgitating key words he likely read in a pamphlet somewhere. He talked about travel times and removing stops to increase efficiency, and mid-street boarding islands. All things that might be useful in a well-designed transportation system, although I don't ever think it's a good idea to decrease the number of stops in a system. But we live in one of the worst transportation environments possible. This is Denver in North America. And instead of envisioning a widespread, useful system fashioned after what the Europeans and Japanese have accomplished, this fella just spewed out nonsense he heard from his lackey coworkers and colleagues. After we went back and forth for a while, I stopped mid-sentence and just reset the conversation to start from the beginning. I stated plainly, look, I'm not interested in modifying our existing shitty system. I'm talking about a complete redesign based on all the science and evidence we have that demonstrates that the European and Japanese public transportation systems work and that they work well. And that means door-to-door, citywide access to at least 3 transportation options, and preferably all 5. He just looked stunned. Finally, he said, well, that's never going to happen. And we ended up changing the subject to talk about something else. But this experience highlights one of the big problems with North American urbanism. People in North America are so downtrodden that they can't even conceive of a better life for themselves. It's not just that they don't envision a better future, and they don't, but it's gotten to the point where they can't. Their brains don't even have the ability anymore to picture what real change and real success would look like. North America never gets anywhere because its citizens' future is so mired in darkness and despair that they cannot even see a glimmer of hope. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it's true. Now, you'd think that in a room full of young, ambitious urbanists, there'd be someone who dreams big and shoots for the highest possible mark. That there would be hope and wonder and dreaming of a better future and a better life. But there isn't, not even close. And as far as I can tell, there never will be. Now, don't get me wrong. These are good people. And I encourage you to go to your local Strong Towns events and socialize and flirt and donate your time and your money. And I'm not trying to rub salt in anyone's wounds here, but do yourself a favor. Dream big, think big, and don't let our current system dictate what you want for your future. Be prepared to be shut down and criticized for not understanding how things work or not being realistic. And just decide beforehand that you don't give a shit. There is nothing outlandish about wanting safe, affordable, door-to-door public transportation options in your city. And no matter how you're received by your local community, be adamant about getting what you want, about realizing your dream and your vision. It happened in Europe and Japan, and it can happen here. And it will happen here if you make it happen. And to hell with the current system and its pathetic limitations. Well, I've finished my shopping, and now I'm ready to head home. Now, for the trip home, I've decided to take the bus instead of the train. After all, I have 4 options. I could walk, I could ride my bike, I could take the bus, or I could take the train. But I haven't actually taken the bus yet to anywhere of significance. I've always just taken the train. Now, because London is well designed, with good public transportation, there was a bus station right out in front of where I was shopping, because of course there was. Another topic I want to discuss quickly while we're traveling is that these transportation options in London are a third place. If you're an urbanist in North America, you know about what a third place is. It's a place where you go that isn't your house and isn't your job. And it's an easy place to get to where people that you will see over and over and over again frequent. So you go to, I don't know, a coffee house or a brewery or wherever, and you go there, and the people that you see there are the same people every time. And it's because they all live in the same neighborhood. It's a third place. It's a place to socialize. It's a place to play music. It's a place to do whatever it is you like to do with other people and to meet new people and so on. And in North America, that's gone. There are no third places. Everywhere you go is transient, and that's with very few exceptions. However, in Europe, travel itself is a third place. Now, when you get onto a bus like the one I'm on, You're not necessarily going to see the same people, but you'll have opportunities to talk to people. What you're not going to see in this video, but what happened to me while I was on this bus, is I met a very nice lady that was sitting next to me. And we talked about her going to school and me coming to London and what it was like to live in the United States and how much she enjoyed London and where she was going after that. And we got along famously. And then her stop came up and I said, all right, well, have a good day. And she got up and she left. And it was wonderful. It was a great social interaction that you'll never get in North America because you're never in a social situation. There are no third places, and everywhere you go is just in your car, usually alone, listening to podcasts of Joe Rogan spouting off nonsense. But you don't have any chances or opportunities to be social. But in civilized countries where they have adequate public transportation, you're actually going to go onto that transportation and meet good people. Now, contrast that with the last time you rode public transportation in the United States. It was probably a bus filled with degenerates and drug addicts and homeless people and people with brain disorders and psychological problems, and not necessarily bad people. Like, I'm not trying to be overly mean, but not necessarily people that you would socialize with outside of the bus. Not people that you would maybe get their number and become friends with. Now, I'm not suggesting that these aren't people. They're Homo sapiens. We can demonstrate through science that they have bodily autonomy rights and deserve all the respect that any other person deserves. But they also are people that you probably don't want to socialize with in your day-to-day life. However, when you go to a civilized country, when you get on public transportation, what you see is people just like you. Young professionals, middle-aged housewives, elderly people going to the museum. You see people from all walks of life with all types of mental faculties and so on. You see potential peers, potential friends. And I don't know about you, but while I don't want the people in the United States who are addicted to drugs and homeless and having psychotic episodes to be downtrodden, I want them to be helped. I think we should improve our systems to get them the medical attention that they need. I also don't want to engage with them and become friends with them and take on their problems as my own. I don't want to invite them to my house to have steak. But in London, nearly everybody you see on the bus is a person you would be happy to know. Adequate public transportation systems aren't just for your sole convenience. And you're not doing yourself any favors by just zoning out and looking at your phone. It's a chance for you to be social, to interact with your community, and to provide quality and benefit to those around you. You can ask someone if they need help. You can pick up something that someone dropped and hand it to them. You can compliment somebody on their hair. You can do a lot in these situations to be human and to express your humanity and compassion for those around you. I want you to contrast that to the road rage-filled experiences you have while driving your car. And ask yourself, which is more healthy for you psychologically? To be constantly on edge because you might get in a fatal car crash every second of your commute? Or to sit calmly and converse with a nice person who you can share a human moment with and express your humanity? While we wait for a moment for this bus to get going, let's take a look at the signage. If you see right outside my window, there is a wonderfully identifiable large sign that tells me, without me having to read anything, just by color coding, that the underground, overground, and bus all serve this station. That's easy, quick, and readily identifiable signage. You won't find good signage like this in North America. As we move through the city, notice how much single-family and multifamily development there is, how many mixed-use buildings there are, And notice how when we're in a residential area where there's not a lot of mixed-use buildings, it's mostly just single family, we're never really that far away from a mixed-use block. So no matter which direction you decide to walk, once you step outside your front door, you're always 2 or maybe at the most 3 blocks away from a destination, from a place you want to be. You're only just a few minutes away from civilization with services and people and socializing. Pausing here for a moment, let's take a look at this mixed-use block. On the left, we see a higher density residential mixed-use building with small businesses on the main floor and a large, wide expanse for pedestrians. On the right, we see more single-family-ish types of mixed-use buildings with maybe 1 apartment above or 2 at the most. Or perhaps that's a single-family unit located above a business. There's a smaller, less accessible sidewalk, but the business comes right out to the sidewalk. In London, you're never more than a few blocks away from this type of infrastructure. So if you want to live right in the middle of the action, you can rent one of these apartments or buy one of these homes. Or if you want to live in a quieter, more neighborhood-oriented street, you can live on one of the streets just a few blocks away, but you'll always be close to some activity, to some place where you can buy things you need or attain services you require. And that includes governmental services and healthcare and any of the types of things that a Homo sapiens might need in their daily lives. Notice as we pass through this residential area how beautiful some of the structures are and how permanent they look. That building to our left is a primary school. What a beautiful building for a primary school. If you've ever seen a primary school in North America, it looks more like barracks or a compound. It's not beautiful like this building. Now imagine you're a student going to this school. What a nice place to go to every day, as opposed to the institutional asylum type schools we build here in North America. And again, as we pass through this residential area, here we come across yet another mixed-use section of the city. This is a hub, a commercial and services space with mixed-use buildings. And as we pass through this mixed-use space, look at how varied all these businesses are. These are small businesses thriving in a flourishing community. There isn't a PetSmart and a Claire's and a Hobby Lobby. And there isn't special spaces with giant parking lots and inaccessible infrastructure if you're on foot. This is all readily accessible to anyone who happens to be wandering through this neighborhood. And you're not going to walk into a giant, expansive Walmart-type warehouse. You're going to be in a little teeny store with just the things you need, and there's going to be a person there who greets you and welcomes you. This is all very personal and very social, not the detached, disinterested clerks that we find in North American retail. These are the owners of these places, and they want you to come back. And when they ask you things like, "Can I help you find anything?" they really mean it. It's not just something that they were programmed to say by a corporate video that they had to watch in the break room. They didn't get emotional intelligence training. They're just emotionally intelligent because this is their business. They know what it takes to acquire and maintain good customers. Pausing here for a moment, let's just sit and look in astonishment at how lovely this street is. We've got a designated bike lane, we've got designated bus lanes, we've got lanes for cars and other traffic, and we have 2 vast, expansive sidewalks for pedestrian traffic. Now, this is not a commercial area. This is very clearly a highway. This is a fast-moving road going from one destination to another. And along the way, we're going to see things like parks and residential units and so on, but there's not going to be any conflict in this road. It's going to be a fast-moving throughway for people to travel. And when they build highways like this in civilized countries, they include spaces for bikes and walking and cars and buses. They would probably put a train here, but in London, they would put it underground. And they do this because they understand that options for travel is what makes transportation convenient and easy for everybody. While we travel, I want to tell you a story. This is a trend that I see in North America. It usually goes something like this. Some podunk weirdo who looks something like this says he's going to buy some land and he's going to build a shed on it, or he's going to have it delivered from Home Depot, and he's going to convert it into a cabin, so he's going to call it a shebin, and then that's going to be his new home base, and from there he's going to see the world or whatever. Listen to how stupid that idea is. People don't realize in North America how expensive it is to live far away from other people. And they don't understand how expensive it is to not have travel options. You see, despite what you might read or hear on the news, living in cities is incredibly cheap. And this notion that you're going to move out into the middle of nowhere and live in a cabin is actually much, much more expensive than moving to someplace like New York City. And the reason why is because of your time. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. You're much better off, no matter how much money you make, to move to a place where everything is readily available and convenient to acquire than you are to going off into some cabin in the woods and living and, hunting rabbits and squirrels or whatever this toothless moron is going to do. And that's because it won't take you any time to acquire the things you need in New York City. But if you move out into the cabin in the woods, well, first, you're going to have a car. That's expensive. And that car is going to need gas and registration and licensing and insurance. And not only that, but you yourself are going to have insurance in case you kill somebody or get killed. Also, you're going to have a license and a registration. And you have to take tests. And you have to do all this work just to go get a bag of oranges. And that doesn't include travel time. So now you got to get in your truck and drive however many miles it is to whatever Walmart is closest so that you can get a bag of oranges. And not only that, you're going to have to walk through a giant warehouse and wait in line with other disgusting people just to get a bag of oranges. Now, when you walk out your front door in New York City, you're probably within a half a block of 6 or maybe 10 places that sell oranges. And you can just pop in, grab a couple oranges, and pop back out. And within a few minutes, you can be in your apartment eating oranges. You can't do that when you live in a shebin in the middle of Nebraska or Iowa or wherever. People don't realize in the United States that their time is what's valuable, not the dollar amount that they have in their back pocket or their bank account. I see this a lot too with people who are living in the United States and they want to retire or they want to become travelers. They have these dreams about seeing the world and they always think the same way. They think, okay, how much money do I make now? Let's say it's $1,000 a month, or let's say it's $2,000 a month. And they think, where can I go so that for $2,000 a month, I can live like a king? It's always like Cambodia or Malaysia or some other third world country like Peru or Ecuador. And what they see is, oh, well, in Ecuador, I can have a decent apartment for $500 and I can live in a relatively modern city. But what they fail to recognize is that you're much better off going to a place in Europe where the standards are as high as they can be, and you have access to high quality of life standards in every direction you go, no matter how you decide to travel by train or plane or drive or bus or whatever, than you are to be only in Kuala Lumpur. where, yeah, you can have a nice quality of life, but you're not going to have access to the entirety of Kuala Lumpur, and then you're not going to have access to the entirety of Malaysia because they don't have the infrastructure. And the gap between the rich and poor is vast. You're just not going to see those kinds of problems in London, and you're not going to experience the same detriment to yourself. One of the best reasons to move out of the United States is to get out of this mindset that the only way to be happy is to be ultra rich and for everybody else around you to be poor. That's not happiness. What makes your life better, what improves your quality of life, isn't accumulating lots and lots of wealth at the expense of everybody around you. What makes your life better is living in a place where everybody has a high quality of life. Then you have a lot of quality to share with everybody around you, and vice versa. And assimilating to a culture that has a ultra high quality of life and full access to the entire country and other countries at minimal expense to you is such an improvement and such an increase in value to you that you'll actually start to realize your personal goals.